Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Azim, how are you?
Walaikum salam, Wali. Apologize for interrupting you.
Not at all, not at all. First and foremost, dear brothers and sisters, we want to welcome with us today, we have a very special guest from the Islamic Shura Council. We have our Vice Chair, Dr. Azeem Syed with us. So thank you very much for taking the time, Dr. Azeem.
You're more than welcome. May Allah reward you and bless you, and immensely give you a lot of good things in return for all your hard work.
And first and foremost, again, we want to thank you, most importantly as well. And then for those, I don't know if that do not know, and for those that do know, Dr. Azeem, works full time at Kaiser Permanente. He is a pharmacist who's working with families, patients, staff that, with times like this, with the COVID taking place, he's in the front lines of making sure that, our larger community is taken care of. But then he also spends time with us here at the Islamic Shura Council, where he serves as the vice chair. And at the same time, he's also a board member at Institute of Knowledge as well. So Dr. Azeem, to get started, what is your role as the vice chair of the Islamic Shura Council?
So as the vice chair of the Shura Council, Wali, I think all the board members share in some responsibilities and are more dedicated in others. So as a board member, first and foremost, I think I help make sure the operational and institutional needs are met of the Shura Council, whether they be from programming, daily functions to much more higher level financial and essentially community-based services. So the vice chair is essentially an elected position within the board, and it just goes to highlight and augment what our wonderful work that is done by the executive director, Malik Bendahum, as well as our chair of the Shura Council board, Uwais Dadaboy. So it's essentially just to help propel that along and keep the momentum going for the wonderful work all the board members are doing. So there's mashallah 9 of us, and I'm one of them, fortunate enough and feel privileged enough to serve.
I think one of the important things that we wanted to do this time around was usually on a Friday message, our beloved scholars, community educators, imams, sheikhs come out and then give a community message, right? Something to take away for every Friday. Just kind of in remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in what Islam teaches us. But this time around, what we have done is something a little different. And this is where we asked, we asked if you can give us a couple of minutes of your time. And I know you're on a break right now at work. So we wanted to get our staff members, right, our board members who are constantly in the front lines of doing work in the community, but do not, in better words, tend to do majority of the work, but then we don't get the time to put them, give them that, or they're not in the spotlight, or they're not, nobody's aware of what is it that, that Dr. Azeem is doing, what is it that Brother Uwais is doing, or other board members like Sister Bushra, like what is it that you guys are doing? So we wanted to make it a little different this time around. Now, I know there are a couple of things that is taking place here in the Islamic Shura Council and as the board, but I have two things that I wanted to discuss, today's program. Number one, what is the Board of Imams? And what is the function of the Board of Imams? And what is it that they do?
So, I wanted also make sure we recognize and acknowledge you, Wali, as part of our team. So, mashallah, all the great work we are doing as a collective group is definitely something we are very proud of. And this new Shura TV initiative is one of the most exciting things that we can connect with the community with, and help people see the value, especially in these very different and challenging times, how everyone can still maintain their faith and social responsibility.
Dr. Azeem?
Yeah, sorry, am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Okay, sorry about that. So
Not a
I was
problem.
just again thanking you for your hard work, but also just making sure that all the board members, like you mentioned, are doing specific roles in how they are part of the communities and want to make sure that we provide the resources for the community to be united, to strive towards excellence, and provide the support and solidarity. So one of those initiatives was the Board of Imams um, that I'm primarily involved with, and all the board members are, mashallah. But I serve as an interface, so more or less like a representative between the board and this Board of Imams. So the Shura Council board has always had a great relationship with the Imams. Whether it was Imam Sadiq Safir, other pioneers like Dr. Siddiqui, newer additions to our board, and most recently Sheikh Mustafa Omar, and now Sheikh Tariq Ata. All these wonderful individuals have always had a very deep and special relationship, not only within the community, but within the Shura Council. So we wanted to more or less formalize this process of how we not only recognize our imams and leaders, religious services directors, but give them a platform on which to stand and make their voice heard and understood and amplify this, and give them whatever the tools they needed to make the process that much more efficient. So this has been in the works for a while. I've just kind of recently had the blessing of stepping in and working with this great group of imams. We have about 45 or so that serve in various capacities. Some of them are leaders of mosques. Some of them are, educators. Some of them are teachers. Some of them are counselors, and a lot of them actually have the distinct opportunity to be chaplains also. Around our brothers and sisters that are incarcerated, those on college campuses. So they have a lot of important functions. So.
Okay.
From the beginning, the imams always collected and gathered on various topics and reasons. We've had seminars, conferences, what the imams could present and dialogue amongst themselves about relevant topics. The idea kind of took a hiatus and took a break of some sort. And then last year, in about the springtime of 2019, is when we started to pick up back where we had left off and wanted to really put this into some sort of workable format. So, we had a few meetings. We had some seminars that are focused on the imams, for example, employment law, making them understand what is your role as an Islamic, leader in the community, the employment that you are currently in at your mosque or institution. How can you navigate with that arena? What options do you have? Do you have rights and responsibilities towards which segments of the community, and how can those be upheld and kept intact? So that's one example. Then we've had seminars on mental health, which has been very important. The imams serve as basically first responders. A lot of them deal with not only faith crisis, but personal crises of all sorts. So they become the first people that listen and have a chance to intervene. So we wanted our imams to be equipped, and we've provided them with, for example, some of the imams chose to take marriage and family mediation training to become well-versed in how to become intermediaries when there are some disputes or some sort of situations where families are having to go back and forth. And so I think we've tried to give them more of a chance to feel empowered, let them realize that they have a lot to give back to the community with, and whatever we can do to support our imams and scholars and leaders in the religious realm, that's our prerogative. So that's a great, and most recently, as you probably saw, they were involved with kind of decision making and giving their opinions on kind of suspending services at the masajid. I think this was a key issue because a lot of masajid, as we're having challenges operationally now that the services are allowed to move outside. Some are still hosting services, but for those who really went back and forth and wanted to put the interest of the community in the forefront, the Board of Imams served as a good way of exchanging views, but also collaborating with masajid leadership and masajid boards and the administrators. And then obviously in conjunction with our health task force, we were able to kind of collectively approach this and realize, okay, how do we address everyone's spiritual needs? How do we keep everyone's health concerns in focus? But also how do we really make this into a cohesive thing that comes together for the masajid? Obviously, everyone was hurting, so we wanted to make sure everyone was given a fair chance to do what they could in the circumstances.
Absolutely. And again, that's a lot. That's a lot that you just shared with us. Now, I wanted to ask is how often does the board meet? And then now the other thing that you had already indicated, but how are decisions made in the board of imam, and then how does those decisions affect the larger community?
Okay, so the board of imams meets at this point just because of the unique circumstances we're in of not being able to physically get together as often as we did. We were trying to have a quarterly meeting if we could in person, but again, depending on everyone's times and schedules, it's a little challenging sometimes to bring these very embedded people in the community together because they're doing so many things for so many people. It's hard for them to find times for themselves sometimes, but now that we are kind of on a virtual format, we've now been meeting on an as-needed basis. So depending on the circumstances, for example, the Eid decision, we had a Zoom call, and everyone was able to provide their thoughts and guidance on what they thought the best course of action should be. Obviously, some decisions are in need of more thought and collaboration than others. This one was more or less straightforward with Eid al-Adha. Yeah. But so to answer your questions, it's a kind of a based on the issues and needs of the time we're meeting. If things arise. Another one we wanted to point out was the social justice awareness that was raised by the violence that erupted and the protests that happened as a response to brutality in the police force and things of that nature. So the imams came up and drafted a statement and sent talking points for the community. So it's basically what's happening. The imams have a good pulse, and whatever we can do to help the community connect with the imams and give them some more chances to communicate and get their feelings expressed on both sides. That's what we've done. So just to give you some ideas, I think I brought up a couple of examples of how the community has benefited and how the imams have been able to contribute a little bit more on a broader scale.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Azeem. Now, mashallah, there's a lot of masajids here in Southern California, and I know the focus is Southern California. It seems that, and what I'm hearing from you is that everybody kind of comes about with a collective decision, right? That everybody votes upon a specific matter. Now, do all those? What I've seen is that when a decision has been made, like majority of the time, majority of the masajids or leadership abides by the rules because they've made a collective decision. But has there been a time where there's certain institutions that do not follow those regulations? And how is that dealt with to the best of your guys' abilities?
So that's a great question. Yeah. So as you mentioned, the decisions are made on obviously a basis of consultation of those who are involved. And obviously we rely on those with more experience and more expertise in areas for their backgrounds and familiarities on those topics. Again, but we are a consultative and kind of facilitative body. This is not by any means an enforcing body. So what we have made, for example, in the recommendations for the masajid, when we provided a framework of how to operate and make sure everything was in place by following local health guidelines, but also keeping the interest of the staff of the masajid and the congregants of those places in check. I think what we try to do in those instances is just offer advice based on, the consensus and what the feelings are of everyone. But it's up to every masjid, as is usually the case in these types of umbrella organizations and bodies, is that they have their own initiative and their own reasons for doing things. Some have resource and capacity and ability limitations, and based on what's best for the community, I think everyone makes a well-informed decision. But the Shura offers a chance for everyone to connect, to reflect on what the best course of action might be. And again, some may choose to adopt, some may choose to modify. So not everyone looks the same. Everyone will do what's best for their particular area and geographic place they're serving. So.
Okay, perfect. I know I did get a comment. We got a comment asking if you would be taking any questions towards the end. Would you have time to take some questions towards the end once we're done?
Yeah, of course.
Perfect. Thank you. So anybody who's looking to have any that want to ask any form of questions pertaining to the Board of Imams or anything related to the Muslim community or anything related to Shura Council related, please do ask your questions pertaining to the topic if you can, please. So thank you very much, Dr. Azeem, for explaining that. Now, I want to kind of move the topic discussion. I know you discussed and talked about the Health Task Force. So what is the Health Task Force, by the way?
So yeah, I briefly mentioned the Health Task Force. That was a very new need that we found our community, just following on the same pattern of other larger cities and larger umbrella organizations. They came up with these bodies of experts or smaller kind of focus groups of people who could give very on the ground, practical, and much needed grounded advice on medical issues. So I think in about March of this year, when we started having more of a need to understand how the situation was and what to go about doing for our communities, just like other faith communities, by the way. And I think our purpose in serving, whether it's the Imams or picking up on the wonderful skills we have and the wonderful personnel we have within our communities and the mashallah, the abilities and strengths we have amongst each other, I think we were able to highlight all the opportunities to fill in where we sometimes may not be able to meet the expectations. So whether it's the Imams or the Health Task Force, this was a way for other people who may not have the same resources to get those resources in time and implement it in their activities and figure out what the best kind of plans are for their specific community. So, I think this has also been a time for us to slowly build up the Health Task Force. We have about 6 or 7 physicians now. They all have backgrounds and areas of interest and practical knowledge of epidemiology, so public health, realizing how things work on a scale of not only houses or houses of worship, but how it works in a community when you go to the shopping center, when you're at a school, when you're at a place of work, because obviously all of them work on the front line. So we have infectious disease experts, people in administrative positions of realizing how healthcare is somehow tied together. Sometimes, if one place is affected, there's always a domino effect sometimes down the line on another type of system. So everyone was able to chime in, and we commend and really thank all of our Health Task Force members for the wonderful work they've done, and very critical work. Just when we needed it, just how we needed it, we were able to come up with very helpful guidelines and offer the community their expertise. And I think they were also very astutely picking up on the fact that the Health Task Force was able to tune in on folks who were being neglected, whether it's the seniors in our community, whether it's the children in our community, people who haven't had their psychological needs met. All of these people were going through the same problems. It was not only a problem of us connecting spiritually, but this was a more of a social deconstruction of, hey, what do people need, where they might be in their faith, in their life, in their economic status, in their familial situation. So whether it was, kids who couldn't go to school and were getting really anxious about not being with their friends, sometimes parents out of a job, our seniors and are incarcerated and institutionalized brothers and sisters. Everyone was really going through a lot, especially when the social awareness and the social justice awareness movement happened. It was almost like a host of factors happening at one time that really highlighted the need for us to connect and understand each other from each other's angles. So, Allah works in mysterious ways, as we know, and there's wisdom behind everything. And one of the reasons behind trials and tests, as we have heard from our esteemed scholars, is that this becomes our vulnerabilities are exposed, and we realize where our sometimes most essential things that are not being met are, and then we can go ahead and address those. I think this has been a great chance to really pick up on who needs what and how, and I think we want to make sure we capitalize on that. So whether it's our Association of Islamic Schools for meeting the needs of Islamic schools, or our Board of Imams, which you mentioned, and these are great opportunities, and I invite everyone to check out all the wonderful initiatives we have. So the charitable organizations also, we do have Muslim Charities Association that really coordinates how best everyone who is in need can be serviced by those organizations that are service-based. So, how can organizations that give relief abroad and have local presences, how can they work well with organizations that are only local? Again, we wanted to provide solidarity and support to whoever and however the situation called for. So.
Okay. And now my next question is, how involved is the community with the task force, with the health task force?
Yeah, so the community has a chance to interact with the task force, and has in the past. We've had meetings with, for example, the most recent general body meeting that took place in July. There was over 50 organizations, and we had a representative from our health task force on that call, and he was able to speak. Actually, we had two representatives, both of them who took time out of their schedule. One of them was actually working and then stepped away from work to call in. But they had a direct line, a direct opportunity to interface and interact with them and ask questions about, why are houses of worship sometimes seemingly more restrictive than, say, venues of entertainment, like, casinos are open, why are the mosques closed? This was a question we got, fair question. So we addressed that directly. And obviously all questions that are directed to the task force can be filtered through us and passed on to them. But, they do have a good idea of what's going on, just because we're letting the community know what they're thinking and letting them know what the community is thinking. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I know that there's viewers and then folks that I have, that have approached me priorly asking for them, in order for them to be involved in, like, for instance, like the healthcare task force, how can they do that? How can they become an active member of the healthcare task force if they show interest or they want to make some change in their own community?
Absolutely. So, I think the Shura is as good as every one of us, and it is a reflection of who we are individually. And so whatever time we give, whatever resources we give, whether you enroll in our GEM program, give every month a GEM, everyone is really a valuable person. And I'm using that term very specifically because whether you can offer your time in getting involved in initiative, whether you can offer your financial resources and backing and stability, well wishes, prayers, whatever it is, I think we're looking for people now and forming committees based on each of these programs. We do have direct liaisons, or people who are from the community, have backgrounds and interests in this, and are serving on these subcommittees within these specific initiatives we have. So, for example, the Board of Imams has some imams that are considered, the ones that have previously displayed an interest and been more involved in some aspects and have gone to the forefront of that. Same thing with the health task force. We are going to be looking to put folks on there to address all sorts of health, preventative health, mental health, public health, obviously, as was stated. So this is kind of an all-encompassing initiative. We need everyone's hands and everyone's efforts on deck, inshallah. So the more we come together and the more we collaborate, we're just going to be that much more capable of doing and helping each other out.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask, how has the two programs been affected with COVID-19 thus far? Any changes? I know there has been a lot of changes with everyone's, kind of lifestyle, where this is kind of the new normal. But has this affected the programs at any way possible?
I think it's even become more even of an enhanced request for services. A lot of the imams are now finding that they do have people who used to have, one level of difficulty that has become even more heightened because of this, because now people are having problems of all sorts, and obviously it's causing a downstream effect on not only how they identify as Muslims, but how they deal with their families, how they deal with their communities. So everyone's actually been more busier, but in different ways. So again, we may not be able to meet and have office hours for the imams, for example, and the health task force necessarily hasn't been able to hold a public showcase or public seminar of sorts, but they've been able to still answer the many questions that are constantly coming up, because the situation, as is changing every day. We're hopefully headed in the right direction as a community, as a state, and as a country, but it's still very unpredictable. So I think we've been trying to adapt to each and every kind of new scenario that presents itself.
Sure. And thank you for sharing that. That's actually very important on that end of it. I was going to ask, next question was going to be, what is Shura Council's vision for both the Board of Imams and Healthcare Task Force for the next 2 to 3 years? I know we probably have another 3 minutes, but that's kind of the last question of what is the vision for the next 2 years for both the Board of Imams and the Healthcare Task Force?
Yeah, so I think those vision points are the same as what our vision has been for the Shura Council. So if you go to the, again, I'm just trying to make people understand about ways they can still continue to collaborate with us and continue to cooperate with us. So if you go to the Shura Council webpage and go to the Get the GEM program sign up page, there are ways that the community feels that they can invest themselves more. So once you feel like you're part of something, you want to do more and more for that thing. The more you feel associated with something, the more you feel like you have a stake in it and a say in it, then obviously you will give more back. So I think the ideals for these two the specific Board of Imams and Health Task Force is the same as Shura Council. We're striving to be an organization for unity, making sure we bring the right people together for the right reason, and excellence in making the commitment to provide the utmost levels of service that we can. So unity, excellence, and I think I mentioned those two things, especially now in this day and age of the pandemic, is solidarity and support. Show people we are, in this together, whether that's our faith community or those of other faiths. And then what can we do to, support each other in every aspect. So if someone's missing something, if someone's not able to make a payment, if someone's living or falling short in some aspects, then we're here to help them and guide them along that path.
Perfect. Thank you so much for enlightening us on the conversation of the Healthcare Task Force and the importance on the Board of Imams and how that works. And we want to thank you for taking the time for answering the question. For those that are watching, again, this is a program geared towards the Board of Imams, and then also discussing the importance of the Healthcare Task Force. And we want to thank you for answering those questions. I know time is up. I know you have to go back to work. You are at work, so we want to thank you very much for really taking your time and helping us and educating us on this important matter. For those, I know there are there's more questions that I'm getting through text, email, and I also have the questions that we have gotten. We will go ahead and email some answers back, or maybe I can direct it to Dr. Azeem, and then Dr. Azeem can send those answers out either through social media or directly to you. Any last takeaways, Dr. Azeem, before we finish up with our Friday community message?
No, I think, again, it's a very huge honor to be on with Shura TV and yourself, Wali, and again, may Allah help and grow and prosper this program in leaps and bounds. And mashallah, it does such a great community service. And this is a special day, a special time. Although we may not be having Jummah services, I remind everyone to obviously take the time to reflect and connect with each other, with our Creator, and really take the time to make ourselves available if others need us, but also give some time to ourselves, because essentially we're all going through the same type of situation in our own ways and in our own respective kind of circles. But everyone is always eligible for the mercy of God. So may Allah always keep us and protect us and show us what's right and how to do what's right and how to help others in everything that's right.
Ameen. Again, thank you so much. And then for the community as well, thank you, always for supporting the Islamic Shura Council of Southern California. The council is here for the community, and for, it's a collaboration of organizations and institutions and the community coming together, basically, and taking this lead forward. So there's unity and harmony amongst everyone in SoCal, and inshallah, the greater community as well. Thank you very much, Dr. Azeem. Jummah Mubarak to everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.